Regardless of if it's the early days of civilization all the way up to a galactic-spanning empire, alliances are needed to help any given side to achieve their ends. And these allies can be found from either within or from without the borders of the civilization in question. If done right, said alliance will be able to achieve spectacular things. Greetings and welcome back to Checkpoint Gaming, Dune Imperium. With this episode, we will be going 6-player version of the game. Some alterations will need to be done to allow for this to occur. With a 6-player version of the game, it consists of 2 teams of 3 players with each team led by a commander. One player takes on the role of Muad'Dib, while another takes on the role of Shaddam Carino IV, with the 4 other players selecting a leader and pairing up with a commanders. With that said, each player is to have their own score marker, with the endgame being triggered the same way as a regular game. With determining a team's score, it is done by adding together the individual score of each player found on the team. So even if a player triggers endgame, their team can still lose if their teammates have very low scores, while the opposing team, collectively, possess mid-level scores. Although the commanders don't possess their own armies and can't win any conflicts, they can still recruit units. Whenever they would gain a unit for a given conflict, they'll be recruiting for one of their allies. On top of this, each ally fights in a conflict separately, thus preventing them from adding their strength together in a fight. This way, all 3 rewards found on each conflict card are available to be obtained and are thus given out to individual players. And it is possible for a team to grab both the first and second place rewards for a given conflict, although teammates can strategize on how they want to go about dealing with who will get first and who will get second. When it comes to the additional components for the game, they consist of the following: 6 Swordmaster bonus tokens, 2 Alliance tokens for the Great Houses and Fringe Worlds, 2 personal boards, with one being the Emperor board for the Shaddam player and the other being the Fremen board for the Muad'Dib player, and 2 10-card starting decks. When it comes to the player components, they consist of the following material: 2 discs, where one is a score marker and the other is a counselor token, 3 agent tokens, a faction cube, and 3 spies. With the Emperor player, they come with 1 copy of the Convincing Argument, Carino Might, Critical Shipments, Demand Results, Devastating Assault, Imperial Tent, Seek Allies, and Signet Ring cards, and 2 copies of the Imperial Ornithopter card. With the Muad'Dib player, they come with 1 copy of the Command Respect, Convincing Argument, Demand Attention, Desert Call, Seek Allies, Signet Ring, Threaten Spice Production, and Usul cards, and 2 copies of the Limited Landsrod Access card. After each player has selected their leader and established their teams, they're to take their seats at the table with the commanders sitting across from each other, where Muad'Dib is located at Arrakis and Shaddam is located at the Landsrod. From there, the allied players are to sit on either side of the opposing leader as to cause the clockwise order to see play alternate from one team to the other. For those who would like to have the most authentic story experience possible, it is recommended that different leaders be assigned to the teams. But with that said, the players should feel free to try out different leader combinations, using any leaders from all of the Dune Imperium components. For Muad'Dib, the recommended allies are that of Gurney Halleck, Lady Jessica, and Staben Tuek. For Shaddam Corian IV, the recommended allies are that of Ide Routha Harkonnen, Lady Margot Fenring, and Princess Irulan. When it comes to that of Lady Amber Matuli, she can ally with either side. From there, the setup steps are to be added to or modified in the following manner. First, flip the Uprising board so that the reverse side is face up, which sees the Emperor and Freeman factions being replaced with the Great Houses and Fringe Worlds factions. Each commander is then to take 1 personal board and place it in front of them, where Muad'Dib takes the Fremen board and Shaddam takes the Emperor board. From there, they're to place all 6 of the Alliance tokens upon their corresponding tracks, with the Fremen and Emperor Alliance tokens being placed upon the personal boards to represent the commanders in question. When creating the Conflict deck, the Conflict 1 cards are not to be used. Instead, only 5 Conflict 2 cards and 4 Conflict 3 cards are to be used, with the Conflict 2 cards found atop of the Conflict 3 cards. The Choam module is to be used along with the Imperium and Intrigue cards being added to their respective decks. Before shuffling the contract tokens, set the 2 Sardaukar contracts aside as described by the Shaddam Carino IV leader card. Each commander is then to take their respective commander starting decks. With the commander's personal components, they are limited in number. Although they will get the spy tokens and 2 discs, the commanders will not get any troops, combat markers, control markers, or normal agents. Instead, they're to receive a set of 3 agent tokens, with 2 of them possessing 1 directional arrow, followed by putting a 2-directional arrow token aside with the other Swordmasters, with all of the Swordmaster bonus tokens placed next to them. Regarding the commanders, they're to place 1 disc upon the 4 space found upon the score track, which is marked as C. From there, each ally is to place one of their discs upon the 1 space which is marked as A. The allies are then to place 1 faction cube at the bottom of each influence track of the game board, but they won't place a faction cube upon the personal board of either commander. With the commanders, each one is to place their 1 faction cube upon the bottom space of the influence track of their given personal board. With the drawing of objective cards, it can only be done by ally players. If both Desert Mouse objectives are drawn by the same team, then the player that drew the 4-6p Desert Mouse objective is to trade it with the opposing ally found next to them. This is so that each team is to have 1 Desert Mouse objective and 1 Crysknife objective. When it comes to the use of cards and board spaces, commanders are to use them just like that of the other players. But with that said, they're not able to recruit any troops or deploy any to a conflict. Since they don't have any cubes upon any of the 4 influence tracks, they're to activate one of their allies upon their turn, who is to receive any effects that the commander is unable to use. On an agent turn, the activated ally is determined by the use of the arrow found upon the agent token that the commander used. So it's going to be either the ally found to the commander's right or left, skipping over the adjacent enemy. When they use the Swordmaster token, the commander is to choose which ally they're going to activate that turn, and during the reveal turn, the commander is able to choose which ally they wish to activate. With the activated ally, they're to take the commander's place whenever 1. Any influence is to be gained or lost upon any of the influence tracks, 2. Whenever any units are to be recruited, along with choosing to deploy them into a conflict if they wish, and 3. When any swords are being applied to a force's strength. If, when the commander engages in the reveal turn and they activated an ally who hasn't engaged in their reveal turn yet, the commander is to still give the swords to their ally. From there, the ally is to record the strength they gained, followed by adding it later when it's time for them to engage in their own reveal turn. But if they have no units found in said conflict, then they're to set their strength to 0. No units, no strength. A commander is also able to cause an activated ally to either deploy or retreat units, even if said ally has already engaged in their reveal turn. In this case, it will cause the ally to adjust their combat marker accordingly. This can allow the affected ally to enter a conflict that they weren't a part of during their own reveal turn. But if that is the case, any swords that the ally generated during their reveal turn are lost due to what is seen as a lack of battlefield coordination. With each commander's personal board, it comes with 2 spaces found upon it that only they can send agents to. When they do, they're to advance their faction cube along the associated influence track, which come with their own bonuses, which benefits the commander's entire team. Whenever Mod Dib gains 1 or 3 influence upon the Fremen influence track, everyone on said team will gain 1 spice or 1 water respectively. And whenever Shaddam reaches 1 or 3 influence upon the Emperor influence track, everyone on said team will gain 1 Solari, or be able to place a spy respectively. Each personal board is to also provide the commander with a victory point when they obtain 2 influence and an alliance, and accompanied victory point when they reach 4 influence. It is worth noting that only Mod Dib can gain influence with the Fremen faction, and only Shaddam can gain influence with the Emperor faction. An ally also can never have an effect upon their commander's personal board. When it comes to that of communicating between players, although it is recommended between teammates, they shouldn't do so privately, including, but not limited to, whispering, texting, and flashing cards. The reason for this rule is to reflect that there are spies here, there, and everywhere within the Imperium, watching everything you say and do, not unlike that of Big Brother from the classic novel 1984. But since each playgroup is different, the participants may want to implement different communication rules. Despite the commander not having any faction cubes for any of the 4 influence tracks found upon the main game board, their allies are to give them influence for their own factions. Whatever ally possesses the most influence with any given faction upon the main board, it will give the commander the same amount of influence as well. This is true even when activating the other ally. Since there are 2 additional factions, 2 new faction icons now exist relating to them. With the requirements or effects of any board space or card, they are as follows. All 4 allies and Mod Dib will use the Great Houses faction, where Shaddam will choose either the Great Houses or Emperor faction. All 4 allies and Shaddam will use the Fringe Worlds faction, where Maud Dib will choose either the Fringe Worlds or Fremen faction. Regarding all units and garrisons owned by an activated ally, they are also owned by the team's commander. This sharing feature allows for certain cards to be activated during the commander's turn. When a commander recruits units when activating an ally, the commander and said ally are each considered to have engaged in recruiting said units. Along the same vein, when units are deployed to a conflict during a commander's turn, then the commander and the activated ally are both considered to have deployed said units. But with that said, any conflict cards that are won by an ally are not co-owned by the respective commander. When it comes to that of the Great House's faction, they feature 2 new icons that are able to be used by teammates in order to help one another. With Reinforce, it allows the commander to recruit 3 troops which are to be divided between their allies as they see fit, with these troops being able to be deployed in a conflict. With Trade, the commander is to choose one teammate that they're going to trade with, which sees the players giving each other one or more of a single type of trade good, which includes intrigue cards, spice, water, and Solari. It is also possible for one or both of the players to decide to give nothing instead. When it comes to the Emperor's personal board and Imperial tent card, it allows Shaddam to move cards from the Imperium row to the throne row. When this is done, a new card is to immediately replace said card from the Imperium deck. When it comes to the cards that are found in the throne row, they can only be obtained by Shaddam and his allies, with Maud Dib and his allies never being able to obtain them. Guess that's a perk of being friendly with the Emperor. And since these cards are no longer part of the Imperium row, they can't be affected by cards such as manipulation. With the size of the throne row, it is unlimited, allowing it to be built over several rounds if the cards are not obtained. On the commander's turn, they can play combat intrigue cards on behalf of one of their allies, who has at least one unit found in the conflict, followed by applying the effects to said allies. With that said, the commander is unable to split their combat intrigue cards between allies, making it an all-or-nothing situation. With each player's Swordmaster agent, they can only be used once per game. So at the end of a round, when a player has sent their Swordmaster to a given board space, it is to be returned to the box. But if the player has their Swordmaster in their supply and they haven't sent it to a board space on a given round, then it is to remain in their supply, allowing it to be used on a future turn. When earning their Swordmaster, the player will also obtain the Swordmaster bonus token, which they are to keep for the rest of the game, even when the player uses their Swordmaster. When they obtain it, allies are to place it into their garrison, while the commander is to place it at the edge of the conflict area that is nearest to their given side of the board. Once the player has placed their Swordmaster bonus token upon the board, it will add 2 swords whenever they perform their reveal turn. When 2 allies found on the same team tie in combat, then one of them can choose to concede the greater reward to their ally. But if they tied for the 3rd conflict reward, then the conceding player is to receive nothing. So look at the big picture and decide which is better long-term, not what's needed for any given player in the short term, like the stroking of one's ego. With the triggering of the endgame, it is done during the recall phase, where players are to first play any endgame intrigue cards that are applicable, followed by the team that possesses the highest combined score being declared the winner. But if a tie is to occur, then combine each of the team's resources in order to check the usual tiebreakers against the other team. With endgame intrigue cards, some are useful for commanders. It is also encouraged to use the trade icon when a player possesses such a card that will only be helpful for a teammate. When it comes to that of Crysknife, Desert Mouse, and Ornithopter, since a commander is unable to possess any conflict cards, they are unable to use any of these cards during the endgame. When it comes to that of Chom Prophets, Secure Spice Trade, and Shadow Alliance, they are possible means of obtaining victory points for the commanders. When it comes to that of Shadow Alliance, it is worth remembering that the commander's influence with a faction is always considered the highest of the 2 allies. With all of that covered, let's look at how to incorporate other Dune titles into a 6-player game beyond that of Uprising. Although the most likely questions were tackled by the publishers, the original products were not initially meant to be played with 6 players, potentially leaving some kinks in place, requiring players to check out the FAQ online for means of clarifying these matters. But if you're in the middle of a game and you're the type of person that needs an answer now, or you can't reach the online FAQ page, then let Shaddam adjudicate. And though Uprising doesn't have any cards that have the loss of troops cost or effect, other Dune products do. If a commander triggers this effect, then the ally they activated will suffer the loss. There are also some other Dune cards and components that work when a player wins a conflict, which are unusable when it comes to that of commanders. When it comes to playing with 6 players in the base game, the following changes are to be made. With Demand Respect and to the Victor, since they are useless to the commander, they should be traded. With Gun Thopter and Test of Humanity, since commanders don't possess any troops during any other player's turn, the commander will never lose a troop due to another player's card. When it comes to that of Test of Humanity, the commander will have to discard a card if they are able to do so. With Kwisatz Haderach, it doesn't allow another player to send one of their agents to that of the commander's personal board. When it comes to that of Plans Within Plans, the commander is able to choose to use their given personal board instead of using the faction found upon the main game board with the associated icon. And with the Voice, the player is able to choose a board space that is found on the commander's personal board. When it comes to that of playing a 6-player game with Rise of Ix, each player is to receive one special Rise of Ix contract during setup. This is done by shuffling the contract tiles and dealing out 2 of them to each ally. From there, each player is to choose which contract they are to keep following by giving the other contract to their respective commander. With these 2 contracts, the commander is to keep one of them and return the other contract to the box. If a commander wishes to place a negotiator, then they're to take a troop from the supply of their activated ally. When the commander performs Acquire Tech, they're able to reduce the cost of said tile by using the activated ally's negotiators. Although commanders don't possess their own freighters upon the shipping track, they are able to move the freighters of their activated ally. And if the commander recalls a freighter, then the activated ally is to gain all of the resulting rewards. With that said, both the commander and the ally are considered to have recruited troops because of this. When a player triggers dividends from the shipping track, then all other players are to gain 1 Solari. And though the letter of the law in Rise of Ix says opponents are to gain 1 Solari, in the 6-player game, opponents extend to both the player's teammates as well as their opponents. And though commanders don't possess dreadnoughts, they're able to have their allies commission them. With the infiltration icons and similar effects, they allow the player to infiltrate board spaces that have their teammates' agents upon it, in addition to those that possess enemy agents. With games that end in a tie, then the team that possesses Chomarchy is deemed the winner. When it comes to that of Memiquarters, the commander can choose their personal board instead of the game board's faction that possess the same icon. With that of the spy satellites, since the commander's influence with a given faction is equal to that of the higher of their associated allies, the endgame benefit of this given tech tile will be difficult for them to collect. But with that said, they can still spend spice and trash the tech tile in order to obtain a victory point. When it comes to that of playing a 6-player game with Immortality, the commanders are not to add 2 copies of Experimentation to their given deck, nor will they remove any cards. The commanders are also not to possess a Research token or the Tleilaxu token upon the respective tracks. Their activated ally is to receive the benefits whenever they trigger or gain the respective icons, including any resulting bonuses. With the genetic markers, the commander will have the same as their ally that has progressed furthest upon the research track, even when they're activating the other ally. When the commander generates a specimen, then it comes from the supply of their activated ally. With the spending of specimen, the commander is only able to spend those of their activated ally. When it comes to that of paying a specimen cost that is found upon a card or the acquisition of a Tleilaxu card, if playing to that of 11 victory points, then each ally is to start off upon the 0 victory point position instead of 1, while the commanders start off on the 4 victory point position. When it comes to that of Shadowy Bargain, the commanders will not activate any of their allies during the endgame, thus causing the endgame effects of this given card, providing them with nothing. When it comes to that of playing a 6-player game with the Epic Game mode from Rise of Ix, the conflict deck is to be built using the Epic Game rules while also adding Economic Supremacy to the Conflict 3 cards, bringing the conflict deck up to 10. And it is up to the players if they want to include the other Rise of Ix conflict cards into the game or not. If they are to be included, then some of the conflicts will not award a battle icon to the winner. The commanders are also not to add the Control the Spice to their decks, nor are they to remove any cards. From there, each player is to draw an intrigue card during setup, including the commanders. So with that said, that is what you need to know about how to go about playing the 6-player version of Dune, Imperium. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like. And if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode and happy gaming.